Welcome to today's video. We're diving deep into how President Trump's policies for 2024 to 2028 could reshape the nation's future. From taxes and housing to small businesses and global trade, we'll explore the contrast between Trump and Biden's presidencies and what these changes mean for our lives. Whether you're a business owner, investor, or just someone curious about what's next, stick around to see how these policies might impact you. Let's start with taxes. Trump's 2017 tax cuts were transformative. He slashed corporate tax rates from 35% to 21%, giving businesses room to grow and putting more money in people's pockets. But under Biden, corporate tax hikes make it harder for small businesses to expand, and inflation acted like a hidden tax on everyday families. Now, Trump is doubling down, proposing a 15% corporate tax rate for manufacturers and eliminating taxes on tips and Social Security benefits. These changes mean more jobs, increased disposable income, and possibly a broader economic growth. Housing is another area where Trump's policies aim to make a difference. Biden's restrictive zoning laws, combined with rising inflation and interest rates, made home ownership out of reach for many families. Trump plans to streamline zoning regulations and to cut energy costs, which would lower construction and maintenance expenses. This approach would also make more affordable homes and would help both first-time buyers and real estate investors. Small businesses have also struggled under Biden's administration due to rising energy prices and increased regulations. These challenges pushed operating costs higher, leaving little room for growth. While Trump's focus on energy independence and deregulation could reverse these trends, reducing expenses and creating a more favorable environment for small and medium-sized enterprises to thrive. Energy policy is central to Trump's vision for economic recovery. During his first term, his energy independence policies stabilized domestic fuel prices and reduced reliance on foreign oil. In contrast, Biden's halt on the pipeline projects and stricter fossil fuel regulations drove up energy costs, affecting everything from groceries to shipping to fuel. Now, Trump's second-term energy plan includes expanding domestic drilling, investing in small modular nuclear reactors, and streamlining permits for oil and gas projects. Reviving initiatives like the Keystone Pipeline and opening more federal lands for energy production would lower fuel prices, creating thousands of jobs and also reduce inflationary pressures, making sure that America is in a position as a global energy leader. Technology is also another key focus. Biden's restrictions on AI slowed innovation and left the U.S. lagging behind China. Trump plans to accelerate AI development while addressing critical vulnerabilities in semiconductor production. Recently, China restricted exports of gallium and germanium, which are essential materials for chip production, leaving the U.S. exposed under Biden's policy. Trump's plan includes boosting domestic mining and creating alternate supply chains to secure these resources. This proactive approach would not only protect the U.S. from supply chain disruptions, but also reestablish the nation as a leader in critical tech industries. As someone focused on goals like owning property, running businesses, and managing healthcare as a type 1 diabetic, Trump's new policies align closely with what I'm striving to achieve, building on his pro-business, pro-growth foundation. In housing, Trump's first term deregulated markets and prioritized energy independence, which kept home prices stable and utility costs manageable, while under Biden, zoning restrictions, inflation, and higher interest rates pushed mortgage rates over 7%, making home ownership harder. Trump's second term plans to cut energy costs and ease zoning laws, which would help reduce construction and maintenance expenses, making homes more affordable for buyers and investors. For business owners, Trump's first term saw unemployment hit 3.5% in 2019 and had a steady GDP growth of 2.5%. While Biden's corporate tax hikes and overregulation slowed job growth and raised costs for small businesses, Trump's 2024 plan to lower corporate taxes to 15% and reduce regulations would help businesses hire, reinvest, and cut their energy costs. entrepreneurs can focus on local sourcing and take advantage of these incentives for domestic manufacturing. While in the stock market under Trump, the S&P 500 grew by about 67% between 2017 and 2020, which was fueled by tax cuts and a strong pre-pandemic economy. While Biden's time in office, the S&P climbed roughly 40% in his first 2 years, which was driven by pandemic recovery efforts and strong corporate earnings in sectors like tech and healthcare. Now, the difference lies in economic conditions and policies driving this growth. Trump's policies focus on cutting corporate taxes and deregulation, which boosted businesses' reinvestment and hiring, while Biden's growth came from a period of massive federal spending and low interest rates, which essentially injected liquidity into the market, but also contributed to many inflationary pressures. Lastly, healthcare is a critical issue, especially for someone managing conditions like type 1 diabetes. Biden's public health care programs created more bureaucracy and less competition, which raised premiums for personalized care. Trump's market-driven approach offers more private options, which encourages insurers to compete and provide better tailored coverage. This gives patients like me flexibility to find plans that meet their specific needs, like diabetic care. While there's no universal coverage, careful comparison of plans from different insurers can help manage and mitigate costs. Trump's focus on innovation can also lead to improved healthcare solutions, which would make it easier to handle chronic conditions like mine. Now, let's take a step back and consider the global picture. Under Biden, the U.S. became more reliant on countries like China, while long conflicts like the Ukraine war disrupted global food and energy supplies. Trump's new policies aim to fix this by bringing industries back to the U.S., renegotiating trade deals, and focusing on peace to protect American interests and reduce global vulnerabilities. The Ukraine war exposed weaknesses in global trade, especially under Biden. By 2024, over $75 billion U.S. aid was sent to Ukraine, and sanctions on Russia drove up energy prices in Europe and caused food shortages in Africa. Trump plans to negotiate a ceasefire to stabilize grain and energy markets. This would help nations like Egypt, which rely on Ukrainian wheat, and lower fuel and grocery prices for Americans. On China, Biden's policies kept the U.S. dependent on Chinese imports, which led to supply chain problems in critical industries like tech. Now, Trump's tariffs and efforts to bring production back to the U.S. would reduce this dependency. While prices will most surely rise temporarily, these policies build a stronger, long-term, more self-reliant economy. Conflicts like the Ukraine war and the Israel-Hamas war have broad economic effects. Europe's dependence on Russian energy caused shortages, while African countries relying on Ukrainian wheat faced hunger and unrest. Trump's approach focuses on quick diplomacy to stabilize markets and reduce inflation at home and abroad. For example, resolving the Ukraine war would lower energy and food costs worldwide. In the Middle East, Biden's indecisive response to the Israel-Hamas war added uncertainty to global energy markets. Trump's strong support for Israel and work with the Abraham Accords aimed to stabilize the region, keep trade routes open, and control oil prices, benefiting both the U.S. and energy-dependent nations like Japan and South Korea. Let's examine the economic causes and impacts of military conflicts like the Ukraine war and the Israel-Hamas war. Russia's invasion of Ukraine highlights geopolitical battles over key resources. Ukraine produces nearly 29% of global wheat exports and is a critical energy transit hub for Europe. Under Biden, sanctions on Russia aimed to weaken its economy, but also disrupted global energy and food markets, driving inflation and shortages worldwide. Prolonged U.S. aid to Ukraine, exceeding $75 billion by 2024, drained federal resources without resolving the crisis. In contrast, Trump plans immediate negotiations to end the conflict, which would stabilize global trade and ease inflationary pressures. So, how are these conflicts affecting countries that previously believed themselves immune to such events? Well, these conflicts shattered the perception of security in many nations. In Europe, Reliance on Russian natural gas left countries like Germany vulnerable to supply cuts, forcing expensive transitions to liquefied natural gas imports from the U.S. African nations, heavily dependent on Ukrainian wheat, faced escalating food insecurity and political instability. This also sparked migration crises in southern Europe, straining countries like Italy and Greece. In the U.S., liquefied natural gas exports to Europe raised domestic energy costs, and inflation eroded consumer purchasing power. So, how do these economic and existential threats affect global and local stability? Well, under Biden, ongoing conflicts have created more instability worldwide. Rising energy and food prices have shaken economies that rely heavily on imports, like Lebanon and Bangladesh. In the U.S., inflation and supply chain issues have exposed weaknesses in the global market, making consumers lose confidence. And Trump's approach focuses on resolving these conflicts quickly to prevent escalation. His push for energy independence helps shield the U.S. from global disruptions, creating a more stable environment that supports allies and strengthens the domestic economy. Biden's leadership has risked pulling the U.S. into prolonged wars, such as NATO's overreach in Ukraine or increasing tensions with Iran in the Middle East. These scenarios divert resources from critical domestic needs like healthcare and infrastructure. Trump's peace through strength strategy prioritizes diplomacy and deterrence, which would reduce the chances of direct U.S. involvement in wars. Trump plans to end the Ukraine war quickly through negotiations, reopening global grain and energy trade channels. This would ease food shortages in Africa and Asia and lower gas and grocery prices in the U.S., helping families and small businesses. In the Middle East, Trump's strong support for Israel and expansion of the Abraham Accords aim to stabilize oil trade routes, reduce price fluctuations, and encourage regional commerce. In short, under Biden, higher taxes, more regulations, and extended conflicts have caused inflation, energy restrictions, and global instability. Trump's policies, on the other hand, prioritize energy independence, cutting federal spending, and supporting businesses through lower taxes and reduced regulations. Let's break this down. Biden's policies focused on big ideas like social programs and climate initiatives, but they led to higher taxes, inflation, and more challenges for small businesses. Trump's approach is a little bit different, cutting taxes, rolling back regulations, and prioritizing energy independence. These changes could make it easier to start and grow businesses while lowering costs for families. By 2028, this plan could create an economy where young entrepreneurs thrive. What do you think? Could these policies help you build your dreams? Once again, don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Dimitri. Out.